Hello, and welcome to Mid-Market Leaders, a podcast featuring leaders from some of America's most impactful but lesser-known companies. My name is Jeff Cass. I'm an executive coach here in Charlotte, North Carolina, who retired in 2023 after more than 30 years of leadership experience in corporate America, and I'll be your host. My guest today is George Hall, who is the recently retired president of LINQ and former owner of a company called Questron. George started Questron in 1997 and ran this business that installed residential phone, data, and security wiring before selling it in 2018. More recently, he spent 8 years working with LINQ, where his team provided managed services for the cellular industry. George, thanks for taking the time to be with me here today.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Thanks for asking me to join you.
Yeah, and our listeners don't know, but you and I go back 40 years, which is hard to believe. You and I were talking about that.
When you said that to me, I was like, 40 years.
I know. It just seems like the other day.
And my body feels like 60 years, but it's 40 years you and I have known each other. So pretty cool where we are and where we've come from.
Yeah, and I see you got a Grove City helmet in the background there. We met at a small school in Western Pennsylvania called Grove City College. We met while playing football there. And by the way, I don't think I've ever called you George until today. I think I've only called you Monty, which was your nickname after Monty Hall. So if it's okay, can we use Monty today?
Absolutely. It would feel weird and awkward, right? You're always Cass. No, I didn't even know your first name was Jeff.
You bet. You bet. So call me Cass today. No problem. All right. So let's start with some of those memories from 40 years ago. So when you look back on your college years, what stands out for you as most memorable or maybe the most influential in your life?
Yeah, actually, those 4 years of college were probably the biggest impact in my career and molded who I am today. Those that have been around me for a long time, obviously yourself, but people that have worked for me, worked with me, whatever, and friends know that I was molded by football. I would start right there at Grove City. Coming out of a small school, trying to play football, I went to the college to play football and just defined who I am and how I even took that into the corporate world. Building a corporation, a company, is just like running a football team. The correlations between the two are almost identical. If you really start breaking things down, being on a team of 100 players and learning from all walks of life, right? Because in a corporation, it's the same thing where everybody's a different walk of life, right? You've got every background imaginable. You come in a locker room, it's all forgotten. And unless you experience that locker room, that is a unique place, the friendships that you come up with. So it was definitely, for me, football impacted everything. And then lifelong friends like yourself and others who still play fantasy football with, I still get together with, all that fun stuff. Yeah. And even Grove City being a liberal arts, faith-based school, it really actually improved my faith as well. But football was the driver. And taking it from freshman year, I'll give you a quick story. My freshman year, I come in, I'm 6'2". It's hard to tell from my picture here, but I'm 6'2", but I was 170 pounds. By my senior year, I was 6'2", 225.
Yeah.
You grow up, you become a man, you become a person, your friends, they molded you. So it was just different.
Yeah.
That helped me. But also, I think the biggest thing about football is just the adversity. I came in, I got injured quickly, overcoming the adversity, then becoming a starter and playing. So it started that whole overcoming adversity for me.
And you talk about the locker room and you're dependent on all these folks, just like in business, right? And you had made a comment to me that a lot of times you were hiring a lot of athletes for that same reason. You wanted them to know what it was like to be part of a team, know what it was like to depend on people, and they were key contributors for you. Is that right?
Yes. Whenever I built a sales team, one of my prerequisites was they had to be an athlete. Now, I know people would say that doesn't mean it's a sure thing. No, it's not. It doesn't mean that others that are not athletes cannot sell. I'm not saying that at all. What I found was athletes, sales is tough. Sales is brutal. You win, you lose more than you win. Like baseball, right? You can go to the Hall of Fame if you bat 300, right? But you failed 7 to 10 times. It's a similar thing in sales and the emotional roller coaster of sales. And then when they're down and they're losing, they know how to recover and what it takes to get back to winning. Athletes are huge for me in the sales arena. Totally.
A good formula. I couldn't agree more. So let's talk a little bit about your career then. So LINQ was the last company you were with. Tell us a little bit about your career and how you came to be the president of LINQ.
And I'll digress back to college, right? So here you go. You're a senior in college. Things were a lot different back then, right? Because we didn't have the internet, all that kind of good stuff. Right now, really did. But I was very fortunate, had a couple opportunities coming out of college. So I what people have to understand about me is a lot of people say they're small town American. No, I really am small town American. I wasn't nearest city, 3 hours to the nearest city. I grew up in the forest, the national forest of 3,500 people, drive an hour for a movie, whatever. So I really wanted to go to a city to see what that was like. We had traveled a little bit, but not in a large scale. So chose to go to Baltimore, moved to Baltimore, the big city of Baltimore. Now people listen to this always say The Wire, Jeff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wire is it really like that? Yes, there are some sections like that. It's an awesome city. I love it. But so people have to understand this is my first 24 hours. Okay. My first 24 hours. So I moved down. My parents are moving. I'm the youngest of three. Moved down. My first 24 hours, I meet my boss. I meet my boss's boss. I meet my roommate. Found a place to live. I opened a bank account. I bought a vehicle, and I was robbed of everything I own.
Oh my.
Oh, if you want to talk about adversity, my poor parents left me there. They headed back to rural America. They said they didn't talk for the whole 5.5-hour ride back and said, I don't know if he's going to be.
We're going to go back and get them.
So you want to talk about adversity right out of the gate. That was, but because of football, I go back to football and cover adversity. Like, I got this, I can do this. It drove me more. So I was there and then worked for a construction company, and it was great. I loved it. Then I realized some things were about to happen in the construction industry. I got into tech. I really wanted to get into tech. I was in technology for a little bit. My father was an entrepreneur. He owned a convenience store. My mom owned a clothing store in rural America. So I had the entrepreneurial blood. So really wanted to go out on my own. What a lot of people don't know is I actually bought into a business before Questron. So again, adversity, right? I'm 30. I bought into a business. I built a house. I just found out I was pregnant with our second child. I lost everything we had at that business.
Oh my goodness.
So I come to my wife, who is a registered nurse for 36 years now. We've been married and critical care. I come to her and I said, hey, listen, I want to do this on my own from start to finish. And she said, you got one more chance. We scrounged up enough money to kick it off, Questron. Mm-hmm. That was my baby that we started it. And so we did that. And then I was at Questron, as you said. So that was, talk about challenges, right? Fortunately, I had a great support system. And then I had Questron. I always say, when you're a founder, an executive, you look for advice, you turn around and you're the top of the pyramid. Nobody's there to help you, right? So an outside source company that would coach me, which was great. Then I ended up selling the company and I went to work as a business coach and consultant. One people that I was coaching was a young founder of LINQ. And a great guy, super smart, didn't go to college, just came up with this idea, went right out of the gate, did it, was very successful, but he was looking to go to the next level. And he was kind of the true sales guy, right? And he's like, I can't get other people to do sales like I do. So I went in as a VP of sales to start the sales. And I knew what he was, knew the business. We were very successful at the sales side. And when I named president, decided to stay on. And honestly, LINQ was my last ride, and it was probably my most fun ride.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Yeah. Cause you spent half your career at Questron building it and running it, right? I mean,
you would think that would be my favorite because I did it from start to finish, but you mature, right? It's just different, right? You're older. I'm matured. I see things differently now. And building this one and growing this one, we were very fortunate. We grew it from 10 million to 100 million when I was there in 7 years, which is crazy. But it was a good ride.
Yeah, that's cool. I want to go back to what you were saying before. So you get to the big city and all of a sudden you have nothing, right? And then you start a business, your first
$1,500 in the bank, Jeff. That's all I had.
Well, that got you to your first paycheck, I guess.
All my graduation presents gone. My pots, my pans, everything gone.
Oh, man. So welcome to the big city. And then you start a business and it doesn't go well. So what motivated you to do it again? I mean, you go to your wife and she's probably thinking, what, are you crazy? Why do you want to do this?
I believed the challenge was somebody else was driving it. I wanted to drive it and I had a vision to do it. I knew I could do it. I just believed I could do it, but I also needed to prove myself that I could do it.
Yeah.
Right. Knowing that there's only one person to answer from. I finished this thing. And I knew with my background and competitiveness that I could do it. But if I didn't, I knew it was only one person to blame. It was myself. So that was the reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I have a couple clients and they were in somewhat similar situation, very tough situation with their current line of work. Opportunities came up somewhere else. They could have jumped to these other opportunities, kind of left that pile of, what, somewhere else. And both of them said to me, no, I got to finish what I started. I can't leave it the way it is. I got to finish it. So there's something there with that, right?
It is. It's just, I think a lot of it's in the DNA, right? It was a pride thing, obviously, right? Maybe part was a little ego, but it's just, I couldn't leave it, right?
You don't want that as a legacy. You don't want that hanging out there. Yeah.
No way. No way. Especially, I have kids and stuff. I had no way.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, one of them is in football big time, right? So you've given them that as well.
It's good. Both my kids play sports. One was baseball, football. The other was lacrosse and football. It's been fun to watch them grow. One stayed in it through college and played and now in it. So it's fun because we still as a family get together and travel and go to games, whether they're his games or just we get together and go to some game, right? Because it's an awesome environment. I'm not even an Ohio State or Michigan fan. Unfortunately, I'm a Penn State fan right now. But we said, let's go to the Michigan-Ohio State game at Michigan.
Oh, wow.
The neutral fan. So we did a road trip one year and we did it. What a great experience. We do things like that that are just unique and fun.
That's cool. That's a lot of fun. Those environments are unbelievable, aren't they?
The big house, right?
Oh, yeah. You got to go to Ohio Stadium, too. I mean, that's pretty
That's
good.
it. It's on our bucket list. Got to go to the shoe.
Oh, yeah. All right. So let's go back to LINQ because I know we can talk football all day long. So I know a little bit about LINQ. I know it was one of your favorite positions, at least since it was one of the last things you did. But what made it unique? Why was it successful?
That's a good question. I think the first thing that makes it unique is the niche market. It's an RMR, recurring monthly revenue or monthly recurring revenue model. It's services based. And I think what made it really unique first was the product, right? Companies didn't even know it existed out there. We had to create that need for clients, and it was a good need. People know about IT services, but they didn't know about mobile services. So that was probably it. But the other part really was the culture that we built was just amazing. When you're taking a company fast, it's a good company and it's grand, but we wanted to take it to the next level. I think that is what really made it special and unique because it became a fast, rapid growing company. We built an amazing culture. Those are the things that made it pretty unique.
You grow tenfold in 8 years. That's something. So you're doubling every couple of years, right? Basically, right?
With that comes challenges because think about it. First of all, you're coming in and everybody's been like, yeah, it's really good. Now you're really going to go full throttle. Well, that's nice. Oh, that's a tough thing because you're saying to everybody, okay, we're going to become a growth company. What does that mean? First, you have to figure out who's on board with that. It's going to be rapidly changing, and that's a hard thing to do. And then who can adjust at a fast pace? If you're growing, what does that mean? More staff, right? Mm-hmm. So finding and retaining top talent, right? That's a challenge for us, right? And then when you're doing all those things, you still got to maintain profitability. Unfortunately, we were able to do all four things, but it was not easy at the beginning because you got to get buy-in, right? Mm-hmm. You have to get buy-in from everybody. You can't just go, hey, everybody, we're going to grow now. What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, I had a guest on here just a few months ago, and he spent his career helping companies sell. They're mostly middle market. They're companies like what you're talking about. And he was talking a lot about what he's seen is many companies, after they double, at some point, they stall out. They see a stall, right? You guys doubled multiple times in these 8 years. Were able to continue to get the talent you needed, and your services were people-based, right? So you needed to find the people to staff that as well that could continue with the pace that you needed. So talk about that. What was your best source of people, and how did you find and retain these people to work for you and help you grow?
I started this executive offsite with our exec team. And I said, hey, we're going to do it quarterly. We're not going to do an annual thing. We're going to do it quarterly because when you're growing so fast, you got to analyze every time, right?
Yeah.
We have to modify. So we identified and said, listen, if we're going to reach these numbers, what's it look like? Well, we have to find and retain. I like to add top talent, right? There's finding but I said, let's find and retain top talent. Well, that's easy to say. And it's everybody. The first thing we said was this: can't even do that yet. Because listen, what we had to do is put a vision down. What's our vision? What's our mission? And what's our core values? That we said is everybody we hire moving forward and who we want to retain has to believe in the same thing. Because if they're not all in the vision, it's not going to work. But if they know what the vision is, there's no chance. So we had to do that first. Then as we hired, we had to make sure they understood that. So then it's the second thing I said is, hey, everybody, we are not going to hire 10 to get, I hate that model. It's demoralizing. First of all, financially, it's killer. But it's demoralizing to the rest of the team members because they're going, geez, here comes another one, right?
How long will they last?
So we said, we're not going to do that. So then what we did is we said, okay, they have to know the vision, the mission, the core values. Then we identified each position that we had at the time. And as we grew, we created more positions. We said, what does success look like at that position? And what does that mean? Well, we had some analysts. We'd say, oh, well, the people that have been the most successful seem to be math majors. I'm making it up, right? It was their second job, not the first. They had to be more mature. We identified what were the successes so we could go look. Then I said,
That was internal, George, if I can interrupt. Okay.
We analyzed our internal current situation, said, what does success look like in each role? It's one thing to put a job description. It wasn't that. It was, what does that person look like? I'm a big guy of like, let's go to the minor leagues. What's our minor league look like? People are like, what do you mean by minor leagues? They go, where are these people at in other companies? What companies do a pretty good job? And maybe that person doesn't know that we're their next step in their career. We identified minor league companies and said, hey, listen, I'll give you an example one. Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I don't know. I mean, they have one of the best training programs around. They take right out of college, great training, and they have to work a ton, man. Their work ethic, they're hard, all that kind of stuff, right? So that was one of our, if a resume came through for us and it had enterprise, they moved to the top. Didn't mean they were a sure thing. We just knew, I want to talk to that person. There were minor leagues for certain roles. Does that make sense?
Yeah. A lot of people would say the military is a good, I don't say minor league, but huge development spot.
Yeah, because look, they know about a team and they respect and they know what they're working toward. It's just different. So then early on, I did some of the interview process with the teams to show them what I was looking for. I had 4 things that I did. I had to have these 4 things. I said, we want to find somebody with work ethic, attitude, team player, and knowledge. But knowledge was always last. As I told them, I don't care about knowledge. We can teach and mold them with the knowledge. You cannot teach somebody's work ethic. I can't teach an attitude. I can't teach a team player. And then you identify, if a farmer came in, man, if they had a farming background, hire them on the spot. Hard workers, 7 days a week, family unit, they don't want to go back.
This is much easier.
You've found a person. That's where a lot of companies stop. I think the next 2 things are what we excelled the best at is onboarding. Because I said to them, listen, an interview process is they're interviewing us and we're interviewing them. I would sit there, people would be blown away with the questions I would ask. I don't ask things that are written in books and stuff. It was, I want to see the true person that's in there, right? But I would say to them, listen, I'm not sure. We're right for you. We need this to work, right?
Yeah, really.
Then it was the onboarding. So that first day, I want them to come in and say, gosh, this is the greatest decision I made. This company is what I want. I'm all in. It's welcome packed. When they came in, their swag was there, their business cards were there, everything. It was like they had worked there forever.
Okay.
We had a process. I didn't interview everybody after that. I didn't even know some of the people, but I made sure that every person that started that day had an hour with me. I got to meet with them and talk to them about stuff. Sometimes I could go to lunch with them if I was in that office or whatever, but they got lunch with the manager. Then they would meet other managers from other departments. So they were always feeling the love that this is where you want to be. We had a process first day, first week, first month, but then it was ongoing forever. And that really was the piece of the pie too, where we brought in outside consultants and support and coaching and leadership training. Because remember, as I told everybody, we talked to exec, these are our future leaders. They're our future.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So one of my managers said to me one time, when George hires you to be a manager, he doesn't just hire you to be a manager. He expects you to manage, right?
Yeah.
You have to empower them to do that. But it's not fair. They've never done it before.
Well, you don't grow if they don't start taking on a lot more responsibility, right?
We can't. We cannot, right? And we can't be at the top of the pyramid making all the decisions. If you're a fast growth company, you have to empower them to make good business decisions. And that's how we did it. That's how we found it. And honestly, your service company, we're only as good as our people.
You have to have great people. And I want to go back to one of the things you said, because it reminded me of another guest that I had who was in IT services, another fast growing company. He thought it was really important when hiring to find people that fit the culture, the mission and the values, kind of could be part of the fabric of the company long term. Not that different than what you're talking about. So talk about the onboarding. How important was it for you to teach them the culture and what it was going to be like and what you expected of them as they got into the company?
Yeah, it's so funny because in the interview process, we've talked about our vision and our mission. When they came on board, it was on their desk, vision and mission. The vision and mission was in front of them at all times. First day, when I meet with them, I'm talking about our vision is this. This is where we're going. It's about the excitement. I'm getting hyped up right now. I feel like I'm going out and playing games, right? I'm going back in company because I wanted them to feel that excitement and vision, right? People think culture is a ping pong table or a foosball table. That is not culture. Did we have those? Yes, we had some fun stuff. But culture was really what we all were about, right? So back to football, right? The score is 27-24. I won. It's easy, right? You know you're winning in business, right? The culture is they have to know the vision, the mission, and what our core values are. They got to live it. One of the things we did, we then put televisions in every location. On those was nonstop vision, mission, but also how we were doing. Besides the state of the queue that we had every quarter, we call it the state of the queue. Every quarter we had an all hands thing where the founder and myself, we would get up and everybody knew where we were going, what we were trying to achieve, were we successful. We used to joke, we're more profitable than Uber. But it was funny because they take Uber every day. I also was trying to educate the younger people about just because you hear these companies doesn't mean that they're setting the world on fire. Right. So, part of that culture was we upgraded our offices. We made it different feel. I said, make sure the office is always client ready and future team member ready. When they walked our office, everybody knew they were clean, spotless. They looked great. They were proud. So if they brought a friend in, I don't even know what you do, but I want to work here. It was like, I can tell you enjoy it. And then, that culture, that goals, we had to set goals, but everybody had to believe in the goal and work towards the goal. That's part of that culture, right?
Yeah.
And then also, I go back to equating football and corporate America, right? So you have offense, right? They're trying to score. Defense is trying to stop them from score. Well, defense in businesses, we want to be able, that's our product, right? We're supporting our product, and there's special teams and coaches. Each unit has a special coach. I was a linebacker, so I had a linebacker coach. He just coached us. It's the same thing. So we let them be self-governing in that culture. Also with the team, I'll give an example from a sales perspective. We had President's Club, right? If they got their numbers, here was the rule, and they voted on the rule. The team as a whole had to make the number. Everybody got to go. It was interesting, right? If they got their number, their significant other got to go. You know how much pressure that is?
You don't want to go without your significant other.
Wait a minute, you're going to Aruba without me? The significant other then behind was pushing them. Let's go. How are we doing? Are we going to make President's Club?
Great.
But it was team. Everything was team oriented. And then there's within that team were their own teams, right? So that's culture. One of our core values was goodwill. I'm a huge proponent, and so was the founder, about giving back to the community. But I always lived in this rule, and I don't know where I heard it or my dad or something, but 50, 40, 10, 50% of my life learning, 40% doing, and 10% giving back. What I said is, let's not wait till the end to give back. So we had a goodwill committee.
Okay.
And in that, we didn't do it. The founder and myself, none of the execs were on It was run by the organization. They
Wow.
who we gave them money, budgets, whatever, but we used to say it isn't about the money, it's about the time too. Honestly, the younger generation is more about goodwill and giving back. So the buy-in with that was great. Part of it's because we owe it to society, but the second part was people realized my life is not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm complaining when these people have nothing or they're battling cancer. It's a twofold approach, right? It was, boy, you know what? My life's pretty darn good. And I'm back. So I think, Jeff, if I answered your question, all those things encompass the culture, and they knew it before they were at the interview process, and it was in there all the time.
That was part of how you brought people in and taught them the culture and what it was going to be like. So that's cool. And by the way, you said the Q, LINQ is LINQ. That's why you say it.
Yeah. That was the founder or our marketing team was, let's call it State of the Q instead of State of the Union. Right.
Okay, got it. As I listened to you talk about the culture, and I can tell you're excited because it does feel like it was a good culture. It was fun. It was performance-based. It was organized, I guess. Those might be three adjectives I'd have. Would you add anything else to that?
I would say it was also believed in and created would be another adjective because we didn't create it. We started it.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
rest of the company formed it.
Yeah.
And
okay.
continued to enhance it. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, they owned it. So it's very much owned by the whole company.
It wasn't like, well, George, he's our president or founder. These guys want it, so we're going to do it. No. We just led them down the path, and then they took over. And that's why we were so successful, and still they are successful, because they owned it and they took it. Part of retaining a top talent is when I got there, we had some turnover. We were trying to figure it out. What we said is, hey, how can we get somebody to stay from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5? So what can we do to add to this mix? Part of that is culture. Give them a place they really want to. Also, give them a place they feel like they're making a difference, right? We have goals. My team, us as a company, I'm making a difference. We would always say each of us needs all of us. And that is a true statement, right? We all need each other or we're not going to be successful. One of the things we did is we celebrated every sale. So every time somebody made a sale, the whole company celebrated, right? Because they knew we were growing and they were going to support that client. So,
okay.
And it wasn't just employee of the quarter or employee. Now there were other kind of things to celebrate that stuff. So one of the things we said in a retention perspective in this culture is we came up with this idea of, I always say I've never invented anything, Jeff. I just took somebody else's ideas and twisted it to make it look mine. We came up with this thing called the golden ticket. And what it was, if you stayed 5 years, for every 5 years you're there, we said you had to take a sabbatical. And it had to be up to 3 weeks. Doesn't tie in with your rest of vacation. You have, but you can't stay home. You must go do something. You had to get it approved. So you would write up, this is what I'm going to do. Your manager then would approve it. And then we gave them $5,000 towards those expenses. They had to train somebody to do their job before they left because they can't check email. They can't check their phone. They're off the grid. They're not anything. It is kill the mind. It's a reward. 2, it's to clear the mind. 3, it's a retention tool. Let's be honest, right? It's a great retention tool. The great was, it was the thank you for doing this. Maybe you haven't spent enough time with your family. Go do this. People did all kind of stuff. And some honestly didn't have the funds, but that extra money gave them the funds, Europe, people went to Japan, people went to Disney, one young lady, she did a pilgrimage. She was camping for 3 weeks on this trail. I was thinking to myself, that doesn't sound too much fun. When they came back, they had to write the story of what they did. They had to show photos and present it. And we kept a log of everything. So people knew. And then on those TVs would come up about their tour so they could see them in other offices. Oh, what did they do on their golden ticket?
Pretty cool. That's fun.
Yeah,
it's really nice. I told her my daughter has that with a company she works for, and they went on an African safari, and I don't know that she would have done it if they didn't have that. I mean, it was something that for them, it was a huge retention piece. And you must have found the same with you. I mean, it was something that was celebrated over and over since you had the stories of what people did, right?
And then the person of 3.5, 4 years is going, you know what? They're already, because I would walk around and we would walk around and say, hey, you got a year left before your golden ticket. What are you doing? I've been thinking about George. I'm like, whoa, it sounds pretty good. They got excited about it because everybody would ask, what are you going to do?
Yeah. So you were pretty successful then hiring people, hiring good people, retaining them. Was that your biggest problem as you went from 10 million to 100 million, or were there other big challenges?
Yeah, I think a couple of things, right? When you're smaller, you can be a custom shop, man. You can do all kind of stuff, right? You're like, sure, we'll do that. When you're 100 million, you can't do that, right?
No, 10 million might be too.
You're going to implode, right?
Yeah.
So I said, hey, we kind of have to standardize our customization. What do you mean, George? I'm like, we're a custom shop. You can say we're a custom shop, but we're going to lead the clients to, hey, this is where we want A, B, or C kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Standardize it. So because every department is communicating, if we don't, it's going to be a disaster. Nobody's going to understand it, right? Well, I think that early on was a big one because the old guard was like, we didn't do it that way. We've never done it that way. We've always done it this way. So changing the mindset, sometimes we have to get those people off the bus, and that's okay. One thing I always said to people is when they were leaving, I would just say, I hope that we're just a stop on your journey. I don't know how long your journey is going to be, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, a career, but I hope that we give you and we teach you some things to help propel you to where you want to go. That's part of it. And so getting the right people, I brought in an old guard friend of mine, CTO guy, and we had to really build I needed a guy that was more of a leader, coach, besides technology guy. He was a high level guy like that. And he was a big asset to us. We had to build some things behind the scenes that we did not have. We built some proprietary software and all that kind of stuff. To get the people's buy-in on this took a little time. The ideas didn't all come from us. We needed them to create this. That was the early thing. But once they were in, they were in. I think all those things were challenges as you're going.
I would think the company looked very different at 10 million than it did at 100, even though you may have had same services, the type of people, the type of processes, all of that it had to change, right? Otherwise you wouldn't have been able to replicate it.
Totally. The longest tenured person there used to tell the newer people, you guys have no idea what we used to do. How we did it, right? And where we are. It was cool because it came from somebody within the organization. The funny part is we would actually, in random state of the queues, we would put up things that we used to do. We'd be like, oh my gosh. And then they'll be like, yeah, we used to do, we used to look like that. Or, we were crammed into this small corner, right? There was 5 of us in this little area, right?
Yeah, right. So how many people did you have at 10 million versus 100 million?
You ready for this? So there was like 13 people at 10 million.
13 people. Oh my gosh.
Yes. When I left, we were $150-ish.
That's a lot of change.
It was a lot of change across the country. And so it was.
I can tell just by talking, you enjoyed parts of being at this company, but talk about what you enjoyed most about that role. What gave you the most pleasure as you look back on it?
I think for me, just my mentality, my DNA for me is mentoring, leading people. So to watch somebody that you saw that first week, first day, whatever, go, and this person's going to be a rock star. They have no idea. Right? And I love that. And then watch them get to where that they could go, but maybe they didn't know. Mentoring, leading, and growing people by far number one. Probably one of the reasons why is it was so fast paced. We had so many people coming and going, and I got to see them grow and do that. It was really fun. And obviously I was an older phase of my career. I would say probably that was one. And you just said it earlier, 40 years ago we met.
I know.
So I think one of the favorite things for me is overcoming adversity. Back to my situations. When the pandemic happened, I said, everybody relax. As my good friend Aaron Rodgers says, RELAX. Okay, relax. From Aaron Rodgers, just kidding. But yeah, I know. I said, hey guys, I've been through the savings and loan. I've been through a housing crash. I've been through the .com. I've been through another housing crash. This is the pandemic. And there's always something. This too shall pass. We'll get through it.
I almost went bankrupt 3 times, Jess.
I mean,
It
I
was
was
unbelievable.
yeah, because people all stop paying me, like, oh my gosh, it's like, I remember one time my wife said early on in our career, she's like, hey, any of those checks in the drawer, are we going to be able to cash those checks? When you're starting a company, that's how it is. It's, I got to pay the people first, but overcoming all those adversities, getting through stronger, and then people watching and believing. I think those are in mentoring. Yeah.
Okay. And you had that throughout your career, really, I would say. So that's a part of your entire career you enjoyed. Okay. That's cool. So fast forward to the beginning of last year, you decide you're going to retire. You're retiring early. Talk a little bit about what went into that decision, the things that were going through your mind, and why hang it up then, right?
Great question. So when we put our vision together, we said, we're going to take this to $100 million by 2025. We did it in 2023, and I knew I had reached where I wanted to be. I came home to my wife one day and I said, I think in the next month, I'm going to wrap it up. She's like, are you crazy? What do you mean retired? You've been driven your whole life. I said, you know what? I'm ready for the next challenge in my life. Retirement is a new challenge. You're retired. It's different. There are different challenges, right?
Yep.
So I said to my wife, I said, hey, why don't you retire too? Now, listen, there's a couple things about retirement. So my grandparents always said, when I retire, I'm going to travel. They never did. I remember my dad, when I was a kid, we did not have a lot of things, but we went away every year. But we had a camper. We did something as a family. We went away. We got away. I never forgot that. One of my advice to people is, listen, don't wait to the end to live the journey, right? And I have lived great. So it's not like I'm going to do travel now. No, I've been very blessed. I've done it. Spent a lot of time with my family early on. No, but at the end, yes, I did. Part of the retirement was I just want something different. And I asked my wife, what about you retiring? She's like, are you crazy? I'm not ready. I'm still there. And then our older son says, I'm going to move, he's 31. I'm going to move to Florida, my fiance, and I want you guys to come with us. And my wife's like, we should go. I'm like, well, sure. What was this?
Perfect time for her to retire. Good idea.
Okay, I'm ready. So I think all those things where it's about the next part of my journey. Will I get back in the game? You never know. But it was the right time. There's some things that I wanted to do. It's great because I see my son a lot, him and his fiance, we go out to eat. We spend time with them. My wife golfs with them every week in a league, and I'm working out into the golf game. It's just fun, But I think I just knew it was the right time. When I coach businesses, I said, what's your exit strategy? How you're going to turn it over to somebody? What are you going to do after retirement? So I think all those years of me coaching people helped me get ready for retirement because you're driven different, no doubt. That we're so used to the adrenaline rush of every day, especially when you're an executive at a higher level. It's just different. How can you replicate that? You and I joke, right? Because we're very competitive. I'm still competitive. Whether you're playing pickleball or golfing or whatever, I'm playing art or something.
Absolutely.
I just said to my wife, I said, physically, I got to get my body back in so I can golf and be ready. In order to do that, I'm going to have to do the driving range every week. You're going to come with me. Tell me what I'm doing.
Got to go to the gym. Got to get ready for that.
All these things we're putting in place now. I just got bikes, so we're going to start biking every day. And then we travel and go see my sons and that kind of stuff.
So a year into it, looking back on it, you felt like you were ready, kind of could visualize it because you had done some coaching that way. Were there any big surprises for you during that year, or is it kind of what you imagined and you were able to adjust?
No, I think I was okay, but I would caution people because you're used to somebody always relying on you and asking you and solving a problem. That problem was not there.
Right.
And it's different, right? No, my wife and I early on, when you're starting a business and, you're chief cook and bottle washer for survival, and my wife, she's working nights, I'm working days, I'm working weekends, I'm doing 70 hours a week. We're missing each other. We would sometimes pass each other in the car because she was heading for her. So I'm coming home. We got kids. You did whatever it took for survival. Jeff, we've never been together all the time, 7 days a week. So my wife's like, you got to figure this out, George, because now you're looking over my shoulder all the time. What are you doing? Well, I don't know if she was ready for me to be with her all the time.
And I think everybody that retires, their spouse might say, I don't know if I'm quite ready for this. Somebody put it to me this way. One of my friends who just retired, half the money, twice the man, or something like that. It's an adjustment. It's real. I had it with my wife, just like you had it. We were not around each other nearly as much as you are in retirement, but you figure it out. And that's the challenge. And this is the life you want to lead, to your point, right?
And then you have to take what you did as an executive leading companies and then find that void over here now, right?
Yeah. What are you going to do with that energy?
Yeah, that energy keeps you excited, right?
Yeah. So you have done some pretty cool things, and not everybody has started a business and sold a business. I do want to talk just a little bit about that if we could. You had half your career there, and many of the people probably were with you for a long time. So talk about that decision to sell, and how was it, both professionally and personally?
Yeah, selling a company is not an easy task. It's your baby. Whoever you're going to sell to will not do the same thing. In your mind, you got to let that go. So first, how do you know it's the right time? Sometimes there's a lot of signs in front of you. You just got to listen to them, right? I've been through a lot of ups and downs from the world, right? I had a residential division and a commercial division. The building industry was down. Residential could be struggling, commercial, whatever. The timing was right where the market was pretty good. And what we had is we said we actually split the company into two. So we sold to two different entities altogether.
Oh, commercial and residential?
Yes. So the commercial all went somewhere. But when my partner and I talked about things, she was ready. I was ready. We both had to be ready. We had a thing where if we both didn't agree, it didn't happen. Right. We didn't agree all the time, but we said if we both can't come to an agreement. Now we wouldn't try to influence the other one, and we always were open-minded. It was good. But she was ready. I was ready. And then we said, okay, what does that look like? Well, we started a couple years in advance. So we started befriending some companies that we knew, and we started planting seeds.
Yeah.
Well, the home division, you'll laugh at this one. We negotiated, the gentleman who owned the other company and we negotiated at a Chinese restaurant for a year. Planned together for a year. And then when it was all said and done, we said, okay, let's bring in the attorneys. So we both brought in our groups and dotted the I's and crossed the T's and figured out. Because the most important thing was our people. How do we transition them so they'll have the best chance of success for them and their family? Don't take my responsibility lightly. I always say, listen, I'm not just responsible for myself and my family. I'm responsible for everybody and their family here when I make a decision. You cannot take your liberty, right? So that was part of our thing, is finding the right partnership. And most of those people still work at those organizations today because we had to find a similar culture that we could. So that's kind of how they went down. The other one did not go down like that. It went through the appropriate channels and did it differently. So
a broker or something like that. So how tough was that negotiation over lunch or dinner or whatever you were at the Chinese restaurant?
Roller coaster, buddy.
A long discussion.
I always say to people when I coach people, how much is your company worth? And they would say, oh, it's worth this million. I said, no. It's worth what somebody's willing to pay. They may overpay and they may underpay. It's really what will you accept. So we got to where we needed to be, and it was good, but it was not simple. Let's put that way.
Okay. Well, that was smart to have suitors potentially already lined up. It sounds like, you knew who was going to buy it. It was just a matter of, could you make it work, right?
Who would make it work? Yeah.
Totally. Okay. Well, that's cool. So you've told us a lot about yourself during this, and certainly adversity is one of the things you've dealt with. You told us a lot about what you learned about yourself. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about yet, maybe that you learned that might have been a surprise about who Monty Hall or George Hall is?
I guess some of the surprise were the things that, so for those who don't know, back in school, what I majored, I remember going to college, my guidance counselor said, chemical engineers make a lot of money. I'm all in. My first test in chemistry, I remember Dr. Nagel get up there. He's like, how many want to be chemical engineers? And it was like 100 of us raised our hand. He's like, 8 of you are going to make it. I'm like, well, of course it's going to be me. Then I can my first chemistry test of a 40. I'm like, I'm out. I think I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. What I didn't realize is all the things I needed to learn about business along the way, right? You can read them in the all you want to and study them. But it's that I think you keep learning along the way, and there's some things that I just didn't even realize I needed to learn. The next thing you know, I'm learning about a 179 and this and that, all these little things that are different. And I think I had to become more of that. Some people complain about the workers of today, the younger. And the biggest thing I learned to do was change. It took me a while. The hardest thing was to let go early on. When I had Questron, I wanted to do everything. I wanted it perfect. My partner to me said, George, we will never grow if you have your hand in everything. I never forgot that about letting go and empowering people to do it.
So that must have been huge, right?
If I didn't have that then, we wouldn't have been what we would have been.
Yeah, I could see that.
Especially you're growing that fast. I thought I knew all the answers. Well, you just think everybody works like you. Work ethic. And those things you learn along the journey, it's like, okay, let's figure everybody out. Once you figure that out, light clicks.
You've always been good with people, frankly. That's the thing that impressed me most about George. Your personality, how you connected with people. I can see that right away throughout football camp and everything else. So I can see that being a huge asset for you in your career.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, so we're almost out of time here, Monty. We have one last question. I always end with this one because I think it's a good one. You've lived your career here. You've had a lot of battle scars. What kind of advice would you give to a new executive or a new CEO that was starting out in their career?
I would say surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. That was one of the things I really did well. Because don't feel threatened. Actually, they make you look like a genius. I remember one time I had a young executive. She came to me and I used to have guest speakers. I remember having you come in one time. I always wanted our people to see other organizations out there that have similar challenges. It isn't just this bubble you live in, right?
Right.
Companies still have people, a product, a service, money, whatever. It's the same. Just do it different. She came to me and said, everybody you bring in is very successful. Is there anybody here that's just a slacker? And I looked at her, I smiled, and she goes, I got it. Don't surround yourself with those kind of people. I said, no way.
Yeah, right.
So I think, that's a big lesson I would say to execs is just hire people smarter than you, right? I think adapt to change, be willing to change. If we didn't change along those ways, what I started Questron as, I didn't sell it as. I never even had an operation division. We changed there. And so you got to adapt to change. You got to adapt to the workforce change. It's just different now, right?
Yeah. And how fast it had to be, right? For you, you did it quarterly. You had to look at it quarterly just so that you could stay in front of the amount of change you wanted to have, right?
You have to. And I used to say, why are we fighting City Hall? Let's adapt to it. Let's figure it out. How can we make this work, right?
Yep.
Well, I'd say surround yourself, adapt to change. I would also say that one thing that I made sure I always did, and I think all executives should do this, I called it the walk. And I said, every day I came in, I went to other people that were not my direct reports, wherever I was, and I made sure that I knew what was going on in their lives, and they knew it was genuine, right? Because you got to be genuine. And it goes hand in hand with my fourth one I'll probably tell you is truly listen, be where your feet are. When people come and say, George, I want to talk to you, I would shut my computer, turn my phone off, and boom, I am where my feet are. And if I wasn't, I'd say, hold on a second. Okay, I'm all yours. But the walk I always thought was crucial, right? Because I need them to know that I believe in them and I care about them and they know that they would do anything for me, right? That we're all in this together. That George just doesn't blow smoke. He really does care. Very sincere. So I knew about their spouses. I knew if their kids were in sports or somebody was sick, what was going on. And I made sure I called them, right? And hey, are they okay? How they doing? It's that kind of stuff. I always say doctors need to be patients. Sometimes you forget. And as executives, you weren't always an executive.
You have to live what your customers are living.
Careful on that because you forget. You get to an executive, you totally forgot where you came from and how you got there.
Yeah.
I would say that's my advice.
Okay. That's great advice. Well, George, I'm not surprised the hour went by like 5 minutes. This was a great discussion. I knew you and I have known each other a long time. I didn't know a lot of these details, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think seeing and hearing how you were successful, it's obvious to me now why. So congratulations on a great career. If you get back into a little bit of it, I'm happy to help out and be there with you, okay?
I appreciate it. Mr. Cass is always good. For those that don't know, stud, absolute stud, Hall of Famer, quarterback. As we say today, he probably should have played the slot and had more fun.
Probably.
For everything. Amazing. He's definitely one of my mentors and love seeing the success of where we've all come from,
Well, amen. Hey, can I put some contact information in case people have any questions for you? And I'll put it in the show notes, and that way they can reach out by email maybe?
Absolutely. Yep. You got it.
All right. Well, Monty, thank you for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Be good.
Thank you.
Thanks.